Hey guys, Mark here. In this video, I'm going to show you why your ads have been recently performing like absolute garbage and the Andromeda update from Facebook that is probably the reason behind it. The Andromeda update is a new algorithm update from Facebook specifically surrounding how Facebook is sorting through these tens of millions of ads and deciding which creatives to show to which individual. And while this article was written on December 2nd, 2024, this actually wasn't fully rolled out until July. If you had a terrible July, this is probably part of the reason why. And many people up until right now, it's now October, are still incredibly struggling with this update. And so Facebook released this article. It's relatively technical. And so most people say that you read through this article and you basically are more confused than you were in the first place. But I'm going to break it down for you and explain it at a surface level, because the reason why so many advertisers are struggling right now is because they don't actually know how generally the Facebook machine works in the first place, even before the Andromeda update. If you don't understand that, you're definitely not going to understand Andromeda. So I'm going to explain that right now. Facebook has a catalog of tens of millions of ads, and it has to sift through all of them every single day, millions of times per day. And Facebook is doing all of this, sorting through all these tens of millions of ads and deciding exactly what ads to show you as soon as you open Instagram or Facebook within 200 milliseconds of you opening. Just think about the math for a second, sifting through tens of millions of ads and identifying 3 to 5 that you're going to see within your next few scrolls. That's an insane amount of data. That's why I always say Facebook is a data platform, not an ad platform. So you have this massive catalog of ads that has to be sorted through to eventually be shown on your customer's phone. And the Andromeda update is specifically a new AI-powered brain that is deciding which ads you show to which customer. But this is pretty basic and you probably already knew this, right? So let's get a little bit deeper. The question is, of course, how? How is Facebook sifting through tens of millions of ads, this massive ecosystem of advertising assets, and deciding within 200 milliseconds the exact creative to show to your customer? Well, it's actually a 4-step process. Step number 1 in this process is called retrieval. And this is where Facebook is taking those tens of millions of ads, filtering it down by well over 90% into thousands, literally just taking millions of ads, finding the ones that are generally relevant to your audience and turning them into thousands. The next step is called light ranking, which is where you take the thousands and turn them into hundreds. After light ranking, you go into final scoring, which is you take those hundreds of ads and you actually begin to rank them based off what's called total predicted advertiser value. And of course, the 4th step is going to be where the actual auction happens, where you're competing directly against your competitors for the creative that is going to, according to Facebook, resonate most with your audience and eventually be served that impression. Okay. Now, this step alone, I'll let you guys in on a little something. Facebook released this kind of diagram many years ago. The OGs in the advertising space will know what I'm talking about, but they released this diagram that explains actually how they calculate the total advertiser value of one singular creative. So when you're going directly head to head against your competitors, here's what's actually going on behind the scenes, okay? Let's break this down because this is the total value formula for who's gonna win this last step of the filtration process, okay? You can see the total value equals the advertiser bid, which if you're using auto bidding, this is gonna be done for you. If you're using manual bidding, this is where you can kind of outcompete people using your bid, times your estimated action rates. Estimated action rates is gonna be a combination of your soft metrics, which will be your CTR, for example, your cost per click, your CPMs, and a combination of that mixed with your hard metrics. So what is your click to conversion rate? As you can see down here, what is the overall quality ranking of your ad? Back in the day, they used to have these old rankings as well that were super helpful. I think they're actually bringing them back, but that's for another video. And then the final piece that they added in here is going to be the overall user experience. This is a piece that they added because if it was only these first two on maximizing advertiser value, you just have all these fucking savage marketers come in that have zero ethical boundaries whatsoever, serve the most fucking black hat ads on planet Earth to these people, and just drive Facebook stock into the ground because the ads are just too out of control. So they had to add this final piece that's actually optimizing for the user experience. And this is actually going to be reflected in CPMs in the future, because if you have poor reviews, for example, on your Facebook page and on your ads, you're going to be penalized with high CPMs. Honestly, they've probably been doing that anyways. They're just now being public about it. But that's another story. That is the final step of the filtration process. Back to Andromeda. Andromeda specifically is focusing on one of these 4 phases of ranking and categorizing ads. And that one phase is also the most intensive phase, which is ad retrieval. Can you imagine manually going one by one through tens of millions of ads, even if it's done by a computer within 200 milliseconds? I mean, it's just insane. And so the reason that Facebook launched Andromeda and specifically focused on the retrieval process of ad filtration is because of AI. Facebook has recognized that there has been a massive surge of AI creative driven material. Like, people are now just producing so significantly more ads using AI that Facebook had to develop an entirely new system of sorting through them simply because the volume was becoming too much to handle and the algorithm was becoming wildly inefficient. Facebook even admits to this in this article. They say one of the reasons they created this because of the increase of advertiser automation with generative AI. They say the sheer volume of ad candidates as 3 orders of magnitude more than previous stages. Like, it's just insane that people are running so many ads driven by AI. I'm laughing because I'm one of those people. I contributed to this problem and probably so did you. So thanks a lot. Anyways, the retrieval process is taking this massive mumbo jumbo of creatives right here and turning it from tens of millions of ads into thousands in an incredibly short period of time. And the adjustments to the ad retrieval process with the Andromeda update has resulted in a significantly faster, significantly more efficient and accurate and scalable way that Facebook can sift through these ads so quickly. And they're actually using a new algorithm, which is the Andromeda algorithm, to sift through these ads, depending significantly more on AI. So a lot of people, if you click on any other Andromeda video on YouTube, I know because I watched a few of them, they don't really understand what's happening, number one. And number two, they just throw around the word creative diversity without really understanding why you need to have creative diversity in the first place. And it's because of this ad retrieval process. And this is only one of the 4 steps. Granted, it is the most data intensive, but it's one of the 4 steps. So let's break down the old model of ad retrieval and the Andromeda method of ad retrieval. Number one, the old model was significantly more manual. It was using these smaller rules for sifting through ads and looking through individual variations in significantly more depth, which obviously, as you scale up your ad ecosystem, it's incredibly inefficient. Andromeda basically uses one big smart AI brain. You can see in the article, they're actually working with NVIDIA to use this new Grace Hopper super chip that is just allowing you to compute at significantly higher levels to keep up with the sheer ad volume that has been flooding the ecosystem. The old model, once again, run on old regular computers. And like I said, the new Andromeda update is on the super powerful NVIDIA supercomputer chips. And then finally, this is probably the most important piece. The old model was looking through ads one by one. Imagine if you have like a library with tens of thousands of books and you have to go read every single title individually. There's no organization. There's no like this section, that section. This is like history, this is nonfiction, nothing. It's just you have to go one by one. This new model of Andromeda is organizing ads into these groups, and it's grouping a lot of ads together that generally kind of look the same. And that is the reason why creative diversity is so incredibly important. So what does this all actually mean for you, and how can you actually start printing with the Andromeda update? Because if you're a good advertiser and you're a good marketer, more importantly, you know that the Andromeda update is actually a massive opportunity for you because most people are not going to adapt, but you will. So again, what does this mean for you? Number one, prioritize creative diversity. If you have been running ads for a while, you probably were doing something along the lines of, if you're testing a video ad, you run like 5 variations, 1 body, 5 different hooks, right? That's not the way that I recommend testing anymore, because like we just said, Facebook is grouping all of those creatives in one, and it's not going to be individually looking and testing to see if one is going to provide substantially better results than the other. Number two, I think you probably already knew this, but targeting has been dying a slow fucking death for so many years. The creative is the targeting. And now that we have this AI powered algorithm, we already had an AI powered algorithm. This one is just smarter, faster, better, like me. The creative is the targeting. So if you're trying to do like this old 2016, 2018 media buying, hacking your way to having proper results, day by day, that is going away, man. It's just less and less control for the advertiser, less and less control for being able to push buttons and make yourself profitable, and more control and power goes to the creative. So for example, if we look at a creative like this, for example, right? Facebook is using AI to analyze every individual aspect about this particular image. It's looking at the flowers, the mountains, It's looking at the ad copy, feeding it through a sentiment analysis. It's looking at the skin tone of the people that are in the image, the gender, the age. It's looking at the background. It's taking every piece of information and using that to power the targeting. This is why I don't post a ton of videos of like breaking down my ad accounts, because they're so fucking basic. Yes, we test a lot of stuff. We launch a lot of funnels. We launch a lot of creatives. However, most of it on the media buying side is pretty fucking boring. We do maybe 10 to 20% cool ninja shit, surfing budgets, cost caps, bid cap, CPO, shit like that. For the rest part, it's just Advantage Plus audiences, CBOs, ASC, and just fucking let it rip. Like, we're Chad media buyers at the end of the day, and we know that if we have a really good funnel, really good creatives, the media buying is like maybe 10 to 20% of your entire success. And I'm being generous with that. It's probably even less than that after the Andromeda update. Another thing that we're seeing is you can have more ads per ad set. You know, if you're launching ads, typical practice would be 3 to 5 creatives per ad set as an example. Now, especially because once again, all the platforms are moving towards like super duper consolidation, which means like just one campaign, minimal ad sets, but you can load in like 25, sometimes even 50 creatives at once. And algorithmically, you're not going to break anything because of the Andromeda update and how creative diversity is so fucking important. The only important thing about that is you don't want to throw in like 50 variations of the same video. And I'm going to get into that like just a second, variations and new content. The final thing is obviously now quality is much more important than quantity. If you were to go and talk to any good advertiser that is knowledgeable about the Andromeda update, you were to say, would you rather test 300 creatives in a month or 20? But all the 20 are like total home runs, knock out of the park, completely unique, completely diverse. Every guy who knows what he's talking about is going to say the 20. Now, you can scale up the quantity if you have your creative diversity in check. It's not like, if you go past 20 creatives a month, like everything's just going to break. Obviously not. But it's very clear like what the algorithm is preferring right now. Now, really what this all means for you is you got to make your creatives more unique, which means less testing on the variation side and more new concept. So here's the difference, right? Between a new concept and a variation. A new concept could be, for example, a new format. So if you're running mostly VSLs in your ad account and you go from VSL to static image with long form ad copy, that is a new concept. If you go from VSL to short form podcast ad, that is a new concept. So just playing around with the formats is a new concept. Another one is playing around with the angle, because like I say all the time, not everybody buys the same product for the same reason. So you can use different marketing angles to target different people. That's another thing about the Andromeda update I didn't personally mention, but they are very much so favoring personalized ads compared to mass market creative. The more that you can specifically target one avatar, one archetype within your customer demographic, typically that's going to have better results than just trying to have an ad that just like goes after everybody and just achieves like massive scale and never ever dies, right? The angle right there would be a new concept. Now, how about the variation? Variation, for example, would be like a new hook on a video ad. It would be like a new lead in your VSL. It would be a new thumbnail for your video ad, let's say. Very small adjustments. And anytime I would be launching something new offer, new creatives, new SKU, I'm gonna waver much more heavily on the new concept side than I am to the variations. Previously, I had like a very simple 80-20 rule where 80% was actually the variations and 20% was the new concept. But I basically completely flipped that on its head now. In fact, sometimes I even go 100% new concept. So instead of it being, 80% for variations, 80% is now new concept and the 20% is the variation. Because again, creative diversity, because of how the AI update from Andromeda is sifting through these tens of millions of ads. Now, going back to our example I was showing earlier, this is the perfect example of doing variation testing. And this is what I would start to move away from. So generally, you look across these 3 creatives, what changes are you seeing? You're seeing it's still a static image across all 3. You're seeing it's still the same format as static images. Yes, different, sub images, I guess, are being used, but generally it's the same format. And the copy is slightly different, right? If you look at these, it looks like the first and third have the same copy, but the second one is slightly different. All of these are going to be variation, okay? And again, I'm not like saying that you shouldn't test variations. I think you should after you go through the stage of heavily going towards new concept. Another example, right? Looking at image ads once again, we have a clear before and after static image structure we have the same copy on both with the headline and the primary text. The image is different and the headline up here is the same, which means once again, this is going to be variation testing. This is what we want to have less and less of in our ad account moving forward. Now, on the other hand, let's look at some new concepts. So you can see sometimes a new concept can be driven by the central philosophy. So in this particular case, it's reversing hair loss. And what we can see here is that on the actual image, yes, these are 3 different images. So there's that, but they are still all static. We clearly see that the copy in the actual image is different in every single one. We see the image itself is different. We see the structure of the image is also different. And on top of that, the copy is different as well. This is a perfect example of new concept testing. Yes, it's still driven by the same central philosophy of you want to reverse your hair loss. You want to start losing less hair. However, new concept. This is what we want more of. Now, if we want to get really into the nitty gritty, which is actually what I do in my ad account, we delineate 3 different types ads that we can test. We have new concepts, and then we have small variations and large variations. Large variations would be, for example, something like this, right? The text section here is completely different in both the creatives. The image is different and the copy down here is different. However, it's still clearly following the same structure of all this text and then a small horizontal image. All this text and a small horizontal image. So this would be a large variation because just about everything is changing that can change aside from the structure of the creative itself. But the copy changed, the image changed, everything else changed. So this would be a large variation compared to something like this, which would be a small variation because all that changed was the image itself, right? Copy's the same, copy's the same, copy's the same. The only thing that changed is the image. Long story short, to me, this is nothing new. I mean, everybody's freaking out about the Andromeda update, but we all know these ad platforms have been moving in the same direction for years. More consolidation, less control, and more emphasis on the creative. The only difference now is instead of just like spamming 500 variations of the same fucking creative, you make more new concepts and make them unique from each other compared to just like split testing every tiny little thing in one individual creative. That's it. And if you're able to do that and focus on the things that actually matter, which is your creative in your funnel, then you got nothing to worry about, right? That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to get more content like this or work with me a little bit more closely, you can click the first link in the description, fill out an application, see if you're a good fit. Other than that, see you on the next video. Peace.